All rise. All right, please be seated.
Ms. Mack, when we left off, I believe we were about to get to item 39. Could you please explain that?
39 is an additional blood spot that was from the victim, and since we were already able to obtain her DNA standard from the sexual assault kit, we did not need to do additional testing on that.
Looking at number 40,
This is a hair sample, no testing was performed.
and then number 41,
A hair tie, no testing was performed.
42, and over here first.
This is blue and pink pants from Joanna Ortega.
And then starting with the results on the waistband.
A sample from the waistband, partial foreign DNA profile was obtained, and that's from an unknown individual. So excluded as the source of that partial foreign profile are J. Del Carpio, J. Ortega, M. Ortega, P. Velasquez, and Oscar Ortega, as well as M. Jonathan Del Carpio, Bill Mowery, Russell Wall, and Roy Coons.
And you took and added this profile to the CODIS system.
That's correct.
Did you receive any notifications or associations with that?
No, we have not.
Now moving on to the swab of stain on upper front right hip area of pants.
A presumptive test indicated blood on this item. Partial foreign DNA profile was obtained, and that partial foreign profile is consistent with the DNA profile from J. Ortega. For 8 locations, the frequency of occurrence for that evidence profile for unrelated individuals is approximately 1 out of 5,100,000. And the DNA profiles obtained from the standards from J. Del Carpio, M. Ortega, P. Velasquez, Oscar Ortega, M. Jonathan Del Carpio, Bill Mowery, Russell Wall, and Roy Coons are all excluded as a source of that partial foreign DNA profile.
Moving on to the next section.
A sample from a yellow-brown stain on the front left thigh area of the blue and pink pants. A chemical test was positive for the possible presence of seminal fluid. However, a serological test for the possible presence of seminal fluid was negative, and no spermatozoa were identified. No male DNA was obtained from that sample on the quantitation. And then due to the limited DNA data, no determinations will be made regarding DNA results.
Moving on to number 4201.
This is a hair from the pants. Due to limited DNA data, no determinations will be made on that DNA data.
Number 43.
This is black bra from Joanna Ortega.
Your results on that.
A swab of the outside of the left breast cup. A partial foreign DNA profile was obtained. This is again from an unknown male individual. Excluded as a source of that partial foreign profile are the standards from J. Del Carpio, J. Ortega, M. Ortega, P. Velasquez, Oscar Ortega, M. Jonathan Del Carpio, Bill Mowery, Russell Wall, and Roy Coons.
And did you take that unknown profile and place it within the CODIS system?
Yes, I did.
And what results, if any, or associations, if any, were you notified of?
I did report 2 possible investigative leads for a Mr. Donald Williams and a Mr. Billy Trapani.
So is this one of those examples where when you have less than a full profile, you could have multiple possible indications?
That's correct.
And is that one of the reasons why this is an investigative tool and not an actual opinion, professional opinion?
Yes, that is correct. We would still need to have DNA standards collected from those individuals so that we can do a direct comparison to the evidence.
Now there's a section there in red, the 122.18. Can you explain that?
Upon a possible match to another case here in the state, that DNA analyst did not feel that there was enough of a profile there to confidently tell if it was a match or not, and so it was decided to remove that profile from CODIS because we want to give meaningful information to our investigators, and if it's too partial, we can't be confident that we're giving them meaningful investigative leads.
Now going on to the next section.
A swab of the inside of the left breast cup. Partial foreign DNA results were obtained. but due to the limited foreign DNA data, no comparisons were performed.
Going to 4101.
44 is the white and pink shirt from Joanna Ortega.
And going. Okay, and what were the results for that?
A presumptive test gave chemical indications of blood, and a presumptive test failed to indicate seminal fluid.
Going to the next section.
Swabs from a stain on the front of the shirt, partial foreign DNA from an unknown individual was obtained, and that partial foreign profile was so partial that it actually didn't meet the minimum requirement to enter into CODIS.
And then the same individuals that you've been repeating, the no buccal swabs, all of those individuals, including Mr. Coons, were excluded.
That's correct. They are all excluded as the source of the partial foreign DNA profile.
Now going to the swab on the back of the shirt.
Foreign DNA results were obtained. Due to the complexity of the foreign DNA data, no comparisons will be performed.
Going to item 41-01.
4401 is possible hairs that were collected from the shirt. These were not tested.
Going to 45.
This is feminine hygiene pad. A presumptive test failed to give indications of seminal fluid, and no further testing was performed.
And this, when we talk about a feminine hygiene pad, when this was examined and obviously photographed, this was a used feminine hygiene pad?
That's correct.
With presence of blood?
Apparent RBS, or reddish brown stain.
Now going to item number 48.
This is bedspread MK number 11.
And your results?
Blood was identified on this item, and a presumptive test failed to give indications of seminal fluid.
And then cutting of stain 5.
Partial foreign DNA profile was obtained. That partial foreign profile is consistent with the DNA standard from J. Ortega. For 10 locations, the frequency of occurrence of that evidence profile for unrelated individuals is approximately 1 out of 49 million.
And the individuals that we have mentioned before, including Mr. Coons, are those individuals excluded?
That is correct.
Going to the cutting of stain 10.
Partial foreign DNA was obtained, and that partial foreign profile is consistent with the profile from J. Ortega. For 8 locations, the frequency of occurrence of that evidence profile, for unrelated individuals is approximately 1 out of 7,500,000.
And again, the individuals that you've previously been mentioning, including Mr. Coons, are those individuals excluded?
That is correct.
Going to the cutting of stain 12.
Partial foreign DNA profile was obtained, and that partial foreign profile is consistent with the profile from J. Ortega. For 5 locations, the frequency of occurrence of that evidence profile for unrelated individuals is approximately 1 out of 554.
And again, the individuals that you've previously been mentioning, including Mr. Coons, are those individuals excluded?
That's correct.
And then now moving on to stains 8, 11, and 34.
Presence of foreign DNA results were obtained, but due to the limited amount of that foreign DNA data, no comparisons can be performed. And there was an indication of a possible additional contributor on the cutting from stain 16.
And then you have listed stains 1, 16, 36, and 39.
No foreign DNA data was obtained.
Going to item 4801.
This is numerous possible hairs collected from the bedspread, and no testing was performed on those.
And number 49.
Blue throw MK number 9.
And your results?
No blood was identified. A presumptive test failed to give chemical indications of seminal fluid, and no further testing was performed.
Going to item 4901.
This is possible hairs collected from the blue throw, and no testing was performed on those.
And item 5001.
This is swabs from window frame. No interpretable DNA results were obtained.
And 5002.
This is swabs from latches on frame, and again, no interpretable DNA results were obtained.
5003.
This is swabs from interior glass with smudges. No interpretable DNA results were obtained.
Number 63,
This is fabric from box spring.
and looking at the results on that.
A presumptive test gave chemical indications of blood. Male DNA was detected on swabs of a stain on this item. The mixed DNA results demonstrated the presence of at least 2 contributors, and due to the complexity of that DNA data, no comparisons could be performed.
And looking at the next section,
A presumptive test failed to give indications of seminal fluid on the fabric.
and the next section,
And swabs from the middle of the fabric obtained mixed DNA results demonstrating the presence of at least 2 contributors. And due to the complexity of that DNA data, no comparisons would be performed.
looking at number 64,
64 is swabs from victim's bed frame.
and looking at the subset swabs from HB1,
6401, swabs from HB1. A presumptive test gave chemical indications of blood. Partial DNA results were obtained that demonstrated the presence of a single contributor, and that single DNA profile is consistent with the profile from J. Ortega's DNA standard. For 16 locations, the frequency of occurrence for unrelated individuals is rarer than 1 out of 100 trillion.
and then the individuals that you mentioned before, including Mr. Coons, were those individuals excluded.
That's correct.
Going to 6402,
This is swabs from HB2.
no results.
No blood was identified. Partial DNA results were obtained that demonstrated the presence of a single contributor. That single DNA profile is consistent with the profile from J. Ortega's DNA standard. For 10 locations, the frequency of occurrence of that evidence profile for unrelated individuals is approximately 1 out of 34 million.
And then the individuals you've previously been mentioning, including Mr. Coons, were excluded.
That's correct.
Going to 6403,
This is swabs from HB3.
and results.
No blood was identified. Partial DNA data was obtained, but due to the limited amount of that DNA data, no determinations will be made.
Looking at 6404,
This is swabs from bed rail head.
results.
No blood was identified on the swabs. Male DNA was detected. Partial DNA results were obtained that demonstrated the presence of a single unknown contributor.
And all the individuals you've previously been mentioning, including Mr. Coons, were excluded.
That's correct.
And was this partial DNA profile added to the CODIS system?
It was.
And have any associations been indicated?
No.
Looking at 6405,
This is swabs from bed rail midsection. No blood was identified and no foreign profile was obtained.
6406,
This is swabs from bed rail foot.
results.
No blood was identified and no foreign profile was obtained.
68,
This is a DNA standard that was taken for Moses Jonathan Del Carpio.
6802, would that be control swabs, which you would not have tested?
That's correct.
And 69,
6901 is buccal swabs from Bill Mowry.
and then the 02, would that be control swabs that you do not test?
That's correct.
And then 70,
7001 is buccal swabs from Russell Wall.
and then control swabs would be those that you do not test?
That's correct.
And then, let's see, 71,
7101 is buccal swabs from Roy Coons.
and then the control swabs that you would not test?
That's correct.
And then items number 72,
These are swabs from a vehicle.
and the results 7201,
This is swabs from interior FD door handle.
results
No visible stains were observed on those swabs, so no further testing was performed.
72-02,
This is swabs from interior RD door handle. No blood was identified, so no further testing was performed.
7203,
Swabs from interior FP door handle. No blood was identified, so no further testing was performed.
7204,
Swabs from interior RP door handle.
results
No blood was identified, and so no further testing was performed.
074,
This was dirty white T-shirt with stains.
results
No blood was identified, so no further testing was performed.
75,
This is a white sock.
and
A presumptive test gave chemical indications of blood. And from a sample on the inside bottom near toes, DNA results indicated a single male contributor. And that DNA profile matches the DNA profile from Roy Coons' DNA standard. For 22 locations, the frequency of occurrence for that evidence profile for unrelated individuals is rare than 1 out of 100 trillion.
And then continuing on that same item,
From a sample of the stain on the outside top of foot, due to the limited DNA data, no determinations will be made.
number 076,
This is a stud earring.
results,
Due to the limited quantitation data, no determinations will be made regarding the presence of amplifiable DNA on that item.
and 077,
It's an orange striped polo shirt.
results,
Cuttings of stains on the outer front left middle and the inside back lower left indicated the presence of a single male contributor. And that DNA profile matches the DNA profile from the standard from Roy Coons. For 22 locations, the frequency of occurrence for that evidence profile for unrelated individuals is rarer than 1 out of 100 trillion.
and 7701,
This is possible hair. Due to the limited quantitation data, no determinations will be made regarding the presence of amplifiable DNA for that item.
and last, 078,
White shorts with belt.
and results,
A presumptive test did not give chemical indications of blood, and no further testing was performed.
Now, Ms. Mack, you clearly, the Metro Crime Laboratory tested numerous items, correct?
That's correct.
Were there other, would you say that this is the normal amount that you test, or is this an unusually large submission of evidence?
This is an unusually large submission of evidence.
Can you give us an approximation, if you have a known buccal swab, and then you have a piece of evidence. Let's take one stain from the karate belt, just one stain. Can you give a generalized idea of the time frame it takes to process and develop before you can make a comparison?
The processing itself is actually the quicker part. That can take 2 to 3 days generally to get the DNA processed through the laboratory. The part that takes longer is the interpretation of the data and the comparison of the profiles to each other and reporting.
So approximately, it takes 2 to 3 days for a piece of evidence to go through the chemical processing analysis.
That's correct.
And the Metro Crime Laboratory, except for in unusual situations, do you process all of the evidence that is submitted for processing in Davidson County?
Yes, that's correct.
And on average, how long can it take for results to be received back on a case?
It's very hard to give an average for us because every case is very different. We have them as short as, say, around 30 days from submission, from when we pick it up from the evidence receiving unit, to very much longer than that.
Are you familiar with a product by the name of True Allele?
Yes, I am.
And are you aware of whether or not the Metro Crime Laboratory is actually in the process of purchasing and training, when the budget allows, analysts such as yourself, so that you will be able to do True Allele analysis?
Yes, that is true.
And were you particularly involved in the process of recommending which items would most likely be suitable for additional testing, both at the TBI as well as with the True Allele process through cybergenetics?
Yes, I was.
And if I could hand you hand you first what is marked log of sample extracts transfers, and actually if you recognize what those 2 pages are.
I do.
And if you could explain to the jury what they are?
This is the transfer of the actual physical DNA extract in the tube from me to the person who picked it up and would then take it over to the TBI for YSTR testing.
And I don't know if you can tell from that or not, but do you know what items you recommended for additional YSTR testing at the TBI?
Yes, I will read out those items. 00502, several stains from 00502. 02909AA and 02909AB. 02803, 02804. 00103, 00104, another stain from 00502. 02801, 02807, 02809, 02810, 02811, 02812, and then any DNA standards from the males that we were submitted.
And what was your participation and how was the chain of custody managed to make sure that the samples that you had were correctly transferred to the TBI laboratory?
This sheet is actually how we manage the transfer of those extracts. It is checked by another analyst before we hand it over to make sure that the numbers match the numbers on the tubes. And then when the item comes back to us, it is signed again by me as I take custody back of those extracts.
And those would be your chain of custody forms?
Yes.
All right, this time we would ask that that 2-page document regarding chain of custody from the Metro Lab to the TBI laboratory be made the state's next exhibit.
All right, but what's the name of the document?
I believe it says lab, give it the title for it. In fact, it'd be titled Log of Sample Extracts Transfer.
Okay. Log of sample extracts transfer.
Transfer from one lab to another.
All right, that's number 21.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now I'd like to hand you this 3-page document and ask you if you recognize that. And just as you participated in the selection and recommendation of testing to the TBI, you did so with cybergenetics, correct?
That's correct.
And did you likewise keep a list of what data from which exhibits was transferred to cybergenetics?
I did.
Could you share that with ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Item 00501, swabs of taped end of green karate belt. 00501, swabs of middle of green karate belt. 00501, swabs of non-taped end of green karate belt. 00502, swabs of triple taped end of yellow karate belt. 00502, swabs of middle of yellow karate belt. 00502, swabs of double taped end of yellow karate belt. 00502, swabs of stain on yellow karate belt. 01301, swabs from inside window frame. 01302, swabs from outside window frame. 016, cutting of cigarette butt. 02803, cuttings of R breast swabs. 02804, cuttings of ankle swabs. 02810, cuttings of R arm swabs. 02811, cuttings of neck swabs. 02812, cuttings of L arm swabs. 04201, cutting of possible hair on blue-pink pants. 043, swabs of the inside of the L breast cup of black bra. 044, swabs of the back of the white pink shirt. 048, cutting of stain 8 on the bedspread. 048, cutting of stain 11 on the bedspread. 048, cutting of stain 34 on the bedspread. 063 swab of stain on the fabric from the box spring, 063 swab of the middle of the fabric from the box spring, and then all of the DNA standards that were submitted.
Sure, at this time, we would ask, oh, also, is there a copy of a FedEx receipt for that information was transported by FedEx with a tracking number to the cybergenetics lab in Pittsburgh?
Yes, there is.
And at this time, Your Honor, if we could submit that, maybe the short version would just put FedEx receipt and chain of custody.
Okay. Number 22.
In just a moment, Your Honor. No further questions, Your Honor?
All right, Cross.
Ms. Mack, I apologize, but you may have said this. When did you start working at the Metro Lab?
In January of 2014.
Is that when they started their lab?
We actually opened in May of 2015.
So shortly before they opened, you were working at a private lab.
Yes, I was helping to get all our procedures and everything up and ready for accreditation.
And the Metro Lab is an accredited lab.
It is.
And who's it accredited by?
By ANAB, that's the American National Standards Institute, National Accreditation Board.
And are there a number of agencies that accredit labs like yours, or is that one pretty much the gold standard?
There are multiples. That one is used a lot in the field.
And part of your accreditation requirements means that you can not accept results when the material is below a certain threshold.
That's correct. That is due to our interpretation guidelines.
And those guidelines are set out because the accrediting body deems levels below certain amounts to be unreliable.
Well, the accrediting body doesn't. We do through our validations.
And you mentioned that some of the reasons that these you get some results is due to errors in amplification.
It's not errors. It's known artifacts that can occur.
Well, what's the difference between an artifact and an error then?
Well, an artifact is an additional amplification event that can happen, and it happens enough that in the field we know to recognize them and know at what levels to look for them.
So it's an unintended consequence of the amplification process.
That's another way to put it.
And when that happens, then sometimes you have, for lack of a better word, mistakes in the reporting.
It's not a mistake. We will note that it's in an artifact position. If it is above the threshold that we deem through our validations, we will consider it for comparison. If it is below, we will not consider it for comparison.
And if you did consider it below those threshold levels for your validation purposes, then you could lose your accreditation.
We would not be following our TPMs.
And labs where that happens, they typically lose accreditation. That occurs on a frequent basis.
I don't know personally, but that makes sense.
And you worked at private labs as well.
I have.
And the private labs you worked in were also accredited.
They were.
And they also had protocols they had to follow.
That's correct.
And they had certain thresholds for amounts that they had to meet as well.
That's correct.
And that's a standard that the Metro Lab, when it was started, it adopted those procedures as well.
That's correct.
I'm going to try not to get you to repeat everything, because we've been here a few hours, so I may be jumping around a little bit. Okay. Do you have the summary that you were referencing earlier with all the different items on it? I may need to refer to that if you don't.
I do.
Before we get into that too, you talked about CODIS, and I don't know that we adequately explained that. Can you just describe what the CODIS stands for and what that database does?
CODIS is the Combined DNA Index System, and it is the warehouse holding area for DNA profiles which are eligible for entry to be searched against each other.
And that certainly doesn't mean that the entire United States is in that system.
That's correct.
Who gets entered into CODIS?
Offender samples, sometimes arrestee samples, depending on the state, and eligible evidence profiles from casework.
And you know, now or at the time that you did this testing, what was the current amount of or number of profiles that were in the code system?
Probably approximately 15 million.
All right. And is everyone in the CODA system, is that just a United States only system, or does that encompass people from other parts of the world?
There are CODIS databases around the world. They are not connected to the U.S. CODA system.
So the ones that you reference, the CODIS you're referencing is the one that's just United States data?
That's correct.
What is the oldest known DNA sample that you've been able to recover a profile from?
I don't know.
Why don't you know?
I can't remember.
You can't remember, or let me ask this another way. Can you age a DNA profile when you're testing?
No. Our DNA testing will not tell you how old that profile is.
And is there any kind of test that will tell you that?
Not the type of testing that we do.
And does DNA degrade over time?
It can.
It can, but it doesn't always.
It depends on the environmental factors.
Such as?
Heat, direct sunlight, humidity. Those are the types of things that can help to degrade DNA.
And is there any test that you do in your laboratory that tells you whether a sample is degraded?
Part of our quantitation can flag if inhibition is detected, which can be detected during the quantitation process, but it's easier to tell from the profile itself.
Does the fact that a profile is only a partial profile indicate to you that it could be degraded?
It could be.
And again, degradation and age are two different things, correct?
That's correct.
Because a profile could be very old and be complete, and a profile could be degraded but recent.
That is correct.
In some of the testing that you've done in this case, if you've been testifying about, I'll try to give you some specific examples. If I can find the number, it was an earbud or wire you tested, and it had Oscar Ortega's DNA on it. Do you call that one?
I have item 2703.
And that was a swab from a stain on a headphone wire.
Yes.
And you got a partial foreign DNA profile that was consistent with Oscar Ortega.
Yes, I did.
And you may or may not know, but as a hypothetical, if Oscar Ortega had been in that home, would that surprise you then to find a partial DNA profile?
Trace DNA is what we would characterize DNA that cannot be associated with possible body fluid. And I really can't make any inferences as to how trace DNA came to be on an item. And a lot of times when we're talking about very low level DNA, that's what we're talking about.
So in this case, the items that were that you tested, of all of those, you only had 2 that matched Roy Coons Jr.
I'm going to verify on the
Sure.
last part of the testing.
75 and 77.
So 75 and 77. There was a sock, and then there was a orange stripe polo shirt.
There was also a cigarette butt from parking lot, item 15.
Okay. That was outside lot C4, I think. So
Yes, that's correct.
All the other DNA that you tested, you didn't even obtain a partial profile related to Roy Coons Jr.
Of all the other ones that I was able to compare, I was not able to positively associate any of those with his DNA profile.
I want to ask you, because the report that you did in this case, one of the reports that you did in this case are essentially summaries.
That's correct.
You also did, I was provided something called case notes. It's about 37 pages long. Does that sound about right?
There's a lot of case notes.
Are there any other documents other than those case notes and those reports related to your research in this case?
No, that is the summary of all of the testing that was performed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I've reviewed the case notes. I don't see anywhere where you address the sample sizes of the DNA that you tested.
Within the inventory sheets, it will tell the size of the approximate size of how much was taken, whether it was swabbed or a cutting was taken.
Okay. Maybe I'm not asking you correctly. So when you get a positive hit for DNA, can you tell if it's, for example, a nanogram's worth of DNA or cells and all that?
In the quantitation step, it will give us an approximate amount of the DNA that's present in that sample.
And is that also true for the partial DNA that you get as well, partial profiles?
It will be a total amount of DNA that's in that sample. It doesn't differentiate between the contributors.
Well, what was the sample size of the positive association for Coons? While she's looking, can I see exhibit screen one? All right.
For item 75, the white sock, the sample of the stain on the inside bottom near toes, the amount of DNA, human DNA, is 0.079 nanograms per microliter.
Wasn't good math, so can you take me up, well, how much is a nanogram?
A nanogram is 1,000th of a milligram.
1,000th of a milligram.
Mm-hmm.
And a milligram is 1,000th of a gram.
Of a gram.
So what does that make a nanogram in relation to a gram? Not a trick question, I just
A millionth
don't know. It's a millionth of a gram.
of a gram.
Okay. And this was a little less than 1 nanogram. 0.079 is less than, is that right? Or am I, no, that's
0.079 is less than a nanogram, but that is per microliter of sample, and we allude in 50 microliters.
So again, the overall size that you've documented is 0.079 grams.
Per microliter.
Okay, that's item 75, which is the sock,
Mhm, and that is the stain from the inside bottom near toes.
bottom of the sock, near the toes.
Mhm.
Okay. And before you move on from that, well, you may need to go on, but was that the stain that there was a presumptive test for blood? You may need to refer to the summary document. May help you.
Yes, a presumptive test did give chemical indications of blood.
But there was not a conclusive test done
That's correct,
because the amount was less than 1 nanogram.
because the stain was not big enough for us to take more for the confirmatory test.
Is that a stain that you can see with the naked eye?
Yes,
And there was a stain on the top of that same sock that came back inconclusive. Is that right? Or no material?
due to the limited DNA data, no determinations can be made about the profile.
But back to the other one, the blood, what you think was presumptively blood but not conclusively blood. Could you do any kind of blood typing or anything on that to see whose blood it was?
Typing, like ABO typing, I assume that you could do that.
Was that done in this case?
No, it was not. We don't do that type of testing.
That would be outside of your laboratory's protocol.
That's correct,
That would be something that the detective would be required.
if they wanted to do that.
And then, what about the amounts for the other? It was a cigarette butt, I believe.
The stain on the outer front middle left of the orange striped polo shirt was 1.41 nanograms per microliter.
Okay. And that one also had no indications of blood or seminal fluid or any other kind of, I guess, identifiable source, is that correct?
Let me just verify that. A presumptive test was positive for the presence of blood on that item.
A number of these items that you tested had no presumptive tests for any fluid.
That's correct.
What does that indicate if there is no associated fluid with the sample?
We cannot tell where that DNA came from. We cannot tell the source of that DNA.
Could have been fluid?
It's possible.
Maybe it was skin cells.
It's possible.
I ask you, speaking of testing the hairs, there were a number of hairs that were mentioned throughout this summary, and it appears that practically none were tested.
Only a very few were tested.
Why was that?
Either they were specifically requested by the investigator, or during testing, it was decided by the analyst to go ahead and take a couple of those forward.
Okay. So it would have been either the detective's call or the analyst's call. But did you document why, who made that call?
It would be the person who is listed as the person who was doing the inventory and screening of the case.
Okay. That wasn't you?
No, I did not do any of that for this case.
So after the inventory and screening was done, we still have a number of hairs that could have been tested that might have yielded some evidence.
It's possible.
While we're talking about evidence, I'm going to pass you up exhibits 21 and 22. Specifically, I want to direct your attention to exhibit number 21. Exhibit 21, I believe, make sure we're clear, that is the listing you did, the items you sent forward to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
That's correct.
You sent item 28, let's see, 02, 1, 2, sorry, you took mine, should have kept a copy. Which, in the 28s, which did you send for testing to TBI?
2801,
I mean, that's the left side of the face swabs according to this chart.
2803,
Okay,
2804,
okay,
2807, 2809, 2810, 2811, and 2812.
all right. I think I heard you say, though, you did not send 2805, is that correct?
No, it is not listed on this form.
All right. When you testified on direct, you mentioned that 2805, which was the left breast swab, did have a partial foreign DNA on it. Is that, you need to refer to that sheet? Or?
Yes, a partial foreign was obtained from an unknown individual, which means that I was able to do comparisons with it.
Okay. So you were able to compare it here, but you didn't send it on for any further testing to get some match?
I wouldn't recommend to send that to STR testing because I was able to obtain an autosomal STR profile.
Okay. And who did that match?
It's from an unknown individual.
Unknown individual. You did enter that from the codes?
That's correct.
All right. But you didn't seek why STR testing to perhaps get a more definite mail line on that?
Not on that item.
How many of the, if you know, you may not have charted this, but in your report, do you know how many either partial or complete profiles of unknown persons that were not matched to anyone of interest in this case?
count two.
Is that complete or partial?
Those are both partial.
Those partial. Did you get I thought I heard you say you had a complete one. Someone that was unknown, and it was entered in the codes, and it's still hanging out there somewhere. On the bed frame.
I don't see any unknown profiles from the bed frame.
But any partials and unknowns are going to be in this summary that's been made.
That's correct.
Correct. Some of what you did find that belonged to Ms. Ortega, the victim in this case, was found apparently on the bed frame. Blood, I believe, was the presumptive test, and then there were some positive matches.
For the swabs from the victim's bed frame, I have a partial profile that is consistent with J. Ortega.
6401,
Yes, that's correct.
6402.
Also, partial DNA consistent with J. Ortega.
If, when Ms. Ortega was found, she was not touching that bed frame, how did that DNA get on the bed frame?
I believe J. Ortega is another
Also,
individual.
Ms. Ortega. Well, J. Ortega, who was not even present.
How did that DNA get there?
Yes.
I cannot comment on how the DNA got there.
Well, the DNA on the things like the belt, the other swabs that you did identify to other persons, not Mr. Coons, is there any test you can do to determine how they got there?
Not that I'm aware of.
If you find DNA in a location and you determine who the contributor was, but the contributor was not there at the time that it was found, is there a word for that?
Again, that could be considered trace or even transfer DNA.
And how does transfer DNA work?
Transfer DNA happens when DNA from one item or person is attached to another item and is moved to another location.
You found 3 identifiable persons in your report, a Jerry Claiborne and 2 males, that you identified at least that partially profiled. CODA said this may be this person.
That's correct. Those were possible investigative leads.
And if, so hypothetically, if Ms. Velasquez, who was the victim's mother, said that those 3 people had never been in her home, how would you, I guess, show that they had been or had not been, or can you?
That would be up to the investigator and not our testing.
Well, I was asking for, I guess, a scientific, but I didn't ask it the right way. Is there any way from just the presence of that DNA to determine if that person had actually ever been in there?
No, our testing will not tell you that.
And for example, let me ask about clothing. So for example, if you saw Miss Jerry person's DNA on some clothing, could it be possible that this person had tried the clothing on at the store and then Johanna bought it and brought it home and that's how it ended up there?
That is a possibility.
What are some of the ways that DNA can be trace DNA can be left on scene?
Several factors will affect whether or not a person will leave trace DNA. These can be humidity in the air, whether or not you tend to shed more DNA than other people. So you can be in an environment and not leave DNA, or you can be in an environment and leave DNA. So all of those factors, along with possible transfer, go into that.
Are you familiar with the skin condition called hyperkeratosis?
I'm not.
What about eczema?
I have heard of eczema.
Is that kind of excessive shedding skin?
I understand it to be that, yes.
expect that someone who'd been in a location with excessive shedding of skin, you might find trace DNA there?
That's possible.
And if it's an enclosed place like a home, in this case, where there's a roof, four walls, central heating area, would you expect that that trace DNA would last a lot longer than it would, say, on the hood of a car out in the sun?
I don't have any DNA to back up that statement, so I won't comment on it.
So you can't say if it's possible or not?
It's possible. I don't know about
What's more likely?
more likely.
Okay. Well, there have been occasions in DNA testing where remains that have been outside for decades have been recovered and DNA strands, complete profiles were recovered, have they not?
Probably so.
Have you been involved in any of that kind of testing, like missing in action war remains, for example?
I have not.
But you're familiar with that from your research and study,
Yes, I am.
and you are aware that that does happen.
Yes, it does happen.
So even in bad conditions, DNA can last a significant amount of time.
It's possible.
And there's just simply no way of knowing, and from a scientific standpoint, how long DNA has been in a location.
That's correct. I cannot tell how long that's been there.
There's no way to know how it got in that location.
Also correct.
DNA basically doesn't tell time.
That is a good way to put it.
That's all.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Let's go back, first of all, to the CODIS question, where I believe Mr. Hawkins was asking you about the individuals' names that had an association tied to them through CODIS. First of all, have those people been identified as that being their DNA?
No, we have not received the DNA standards from any of those 3 people.
So, do you know for a fact that the female that CODIS associated, I believe Jerry might have been the first name, with the bra, can you sit here and scientifically give an opinion that that is her DNA?
I cannot do that.
Would it be accurate to say that she shares the same profiles that are present in that partial DNA profile?
Yes, that's correct.
And you have no way of knowing whether or not the remaining portions of that DNA are consistent or inconsistent.
That's correct. The partial profile did not have information at all the locations.
And on one of the CODIS associations, you actually, for one sample, receive a CODIS association because there are two different individuals, correct?
That's correct.
And is that because you have a partial profile and you do not have the complete sequence of the code?
That's correct.
And while those 2 individuals share those same profiles, partial profiles, unless they are identical twins on STR testing, they would not share the complete DNA profile.
That is correct. Your DNA is unique to you unless you are an identical twin.
Now, you were asked about whether or not you put, or if you put the sample, why did you not send on the sample? I believe it was 2805, which was, I believe, the bra that was associated with the CODIS association to the female with the first name, I think, Jerry. You were asked about why you did not,
2805 is the left breast swabs.
the left breast swabs. Was there any male DNA detected on that left breast swab?
Yes, there was.
If you have YSTR and you receive a YSTR profile, can you load that in to CODIS?
Not alone.
Okay, can you explain that?
An STR profile is the main vehicle through which it is searched. You can add other genetic information, but that is not used in CODIS to do the search.
So if you have an unknown YSTR profile and you wish to see if there is an association out there in the CODIS databank, you can't just put in that YSTR profile to search for an association.
That's correct.
Now, was a question to you about how many, quote, unknowns there were, and the phrase was also used as to partial. When you use that term, unknown profile, does that mean you were actually able to develop a profile, but you just could not associate it or you could not find a comparison for it?
That is correct.
Is that different than when you are able to say male DNA is detected?
It is a different situation, yes.
Because on the sections where you have in your reports that male DNA is detected, but you do not have that a profile was developed, that would not be classified as an unknown to an unknown person.
There
correct?
is no unknown profile there.
So when you use that, while you may not know who that male DNA that you've detected belongs to, when you use the term unknown profile, what you're stating is that there actually is a profile, you just don't know to whom that profile belongs.
That's correct.
In the testing of the clothing of Johanna Ortega, in your reports, that's kind of where we get to that little asterisk where you assume that her profile is present and you are looking for foreign DNA. Why would you assume that her profile might be present on the clothing she wore or was wearing?
It is reasonable to assume that you will leave DNA on clothing that you're wearing.
So if the white sock that was tested when we were talking about that small little less than a nanogram, if it were to have come from a sock collected from a campsite where the defendant lived and was believed to be his clothing, would that be similar to the situation with Ms. Ortega with her clothing? It would not be surprising to find his DNA on his clothing.
That's correct.
Have just a moment.
All right,
No further questions, Your Honor.
recross.
So in relation to these three hits that you had on Ms. Claiborne and two gentlemen, the only way you could accurately test that was if someone went out and brought you back their cameras.
That's correct.
Even though they're in the CODIS system and you have a DNA profile that's, I guess, mathematically there, you've not had a physical sample of that to verify the result.
That's correct.
And you would need that physical sample, otherwise you wouldn't be meeting your certification requirements.
That's correct.
And that would be what's considered, I guess, proper for your laboratory.
That is correct.
And it's not your job to go out and get those.
No, we don't do that.
That would be up to the law enforcement agency that's investigating.
Yes, it would.
Just one follow-up on the accreditation issue. You were asked about your accreditation.
Your Honor, exceeds the scope of my report.
Your Honor, yeah, he was asking her specifically about accreditation. If your laboratory does receive the budgetary funding and ability to purchase True Allele, would that in any way jeopardize that testing ability? Would that jeopardize in any way your accreditation?
No, it would not.
Anything further?
No.
All right, thank you, ma'am, you're excused. What kind of witness do you have next?
Next one will be another lengthy DNA witness.
Okay, well, there's no point in us going for 10 minutes. we're gonna go ahead and take lunch, and we'll come back at 1 o'clock. So you'll get an extra 10 minutes from us. All right, enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
All rise.
The court is in lunch, during 1